Hi everyone, and welcome to an introductory video into the Qualitative Reading Inventory 5 word list section of the assessment. The purpose of this assessment is to really measure students' word recognition ability, and we're going to look at two things. We're going to look at automaticity, which is their ability to recognize words very quickly, but also their accuracy. So how correct are they in their recognition? To get started, you're going to need your QRI manual. And then we're also going to be using the examiner pages that go along with the word list. Now, everything that you need to know about the word list is in section 6 of your manual. So I'm going to turn there now. That's on page 40. And this is a great resource as you're preparing for the assessment. The other thing that you're going to want to know about are the materials. And so if we go back in the back of the manual, remember we looked at the materials for students. And what you have for the word list are and this starts on page 99. In the test materials, you have a set of student word lists for grade levels pre-K or pre-primer all the way up through high school. And you'll notice that these word lists are not marked with the grade level of difficulty. We don't want students to know what kind of words they're reading. You also see the teal edge pages. These are your examiner pages, and you can copy these out of the manual or you can print them off the CD. So we're going to go back to section 6. The second important purpose of the word list is giving you a starting point for your passages, which is the second part of the assessment. So this gives you an estimate of where to start with those passages, and so that's why we're all going to begin with the word list, no matter our student's grade level or reading ability, because this is a good place to begin in learning about your student's reading performance. And so to begin, you're going to select a list that's 2 grade levels below your student's grade level, at least. So if my student's in 3rd grade, I will start with the 1st grade word list. And then you're going to read the instructions to the word list to the student so they understand what they'll be doing. And then what you'll do is you'll show the student materials that you have in your manual, and you'll have your examiner pages ready. And so as you ask the student to read through the words, you're going to keep track of how long it takes them to read, and you're also going to mark that on your examiner pages. So if you turn to page 44, you'll see an example of the examiner pages with a 2nd grade word list and 3rd grade as well. So we can kind of imagine what's going on in this situation. So we have the list of words, and we know that the student has gone through the list, and while they were going through this, the examiner was allowing for 1 second and kind of counting that as the student read the word. So as the student said morning, the examiner thought 1001. And then 1001, tired, 1001, shiny, 1001, old. So you're thinking that to yourself as a student is going through the words. And you can use a little window card to show the words, individually, so there's only one at a time. You could also put the words on flashcards for the student. And then also just use a piece of paper to cover up the words and show them one at a time on the student materials later in your manual. But let's look at this example to figure out how to mark the results. And so you'll notice that you have 2 columns, identified automatic and then identified. The identified automatically is what happened in 1 second. So if you see a C, you'll know that the student actually correctly recognized that word in 1 second. If you see a word written or something written, then you'll know that the student actually made an attempt at the word, but they didn't get it right. And so we're going to write down what they say if they get it incorrect. The other thing you might notice if you look at the 3rd grade example is that you might see something like DK. DK means that the student didn't know the word, and so we're going to mark that. You might also notice something on SC. That stands for self-correct. So in this example, for number 19 on the 2nd grade word list, you'll see the word was noticed. The student in 1 second said not iced, but then they self-corrected, so we mark that as a self-correct. Anything that happens after 1 second is going to get marked in the identified column, and so you'll see, like for promise, the student didn't say anything in 1 second, but after 1 second, they correctly identified promise. So these examples can help us figure out how to score this particular student performance. After the student has completed the word list, then you're going to go down to the bottom. You're going to count up the number of correct in the identified automatic and figure out a percentage out of the number possible. Correct identified, that's the 2nd column, percent possible, and then the total number correct. And then we're going to use this total number correct to figure out what is the student's level. And you can see down here we have our levels: independent, instructional, and frustration. So if we look at the student's total correct, they had 17 out of 20. That's an 85%, and that would put them at the instructional level. So then we would say the student is instructional on the 2nd grade word list. If we look at the 3rd grade example, let's look at our totals. You'll see 14 out of 20, 70%. Okay, well this list is also at the student's instructional level. One thing that's important for you to know when you're administering the QRI word list is that everyone needs to have at least one word list that is at the student's independent, a list that's at their instructional level, and also at their frustration level. So at a minimum, everyone's going to have 3 word lists in this section of their assessment notebook when they're doing the QRI. And then we're going to use the student's independent level word list as a starting point for the passages. So wherever the student was independent on their word list, we're going to start their passages at that same grade level. And so after you're finished with your word list, then the next day or maybe a couple days later, you'll want to begin the passage administration. Word lists don't take long, but the passages take a little bit more time and effort, and so we're going to give the student as much time as necessary to complete the passages. And I'll tell you more about the passages in our next class. So good luck with the QRI word list section, and I hope you'll learn a lot about your student while you're out in the field.